Good evening, one and all. Welcome to our podcast, The Absolute Truth. My name's Greg. I'm here with Christina. We're excited once again to get a chance to share and visit with you. We're going to start off, before we start off into our Did You Know segment, I have a red alert. We're having another Save America protest/rally this coming Sunday, August the 8th in Austintown. It's from 2 to 4 p.m. An address to help find us is 5501 Mahoning Avenue. That's in Austintown, 44515. It's at the corner of Route 46 and Mahoning Avenue. You'll see a Walgreens there. Usually at that corner, you'll see all of us. We've received word that governor candidate here for Ohio, Joe Blystone, will be in attendance. He'll get a chance to give us some insight of what his beliefs are and how he plans on helping Ohio get on track, and also get a chance to know him and ask questions. He'll be there throughout the entire time from what we were told. Bring your signs, your friends. I look at it as a Fight for Freedom party. Lots of great music. Gene will be bringing his speakers and audio system to celebrate our fight in winning our country back. So with that, let's start into our Did You Know segment. Christina?
Did you know that Fox News banned Mike Lindell ad, My Pillow drops the network? I would encourage everyone out there to go buy a pillow, sheets, whatever you may need. I heard that the sheets are phenomenal. I think Greg just bought some and he really likes them a lot.
I do.
Go support this patriot who's actively and aggressively fighting for election integrity and exposing the fraudulent election. He has literally used millions of his own money to do so. So go out there and support him for helping fight for our country. Greg?
I absolutely support him, and I'm thankful for Mike Lindell. I listen to Lindell TV quite often. There's a guy by the name of Brandon House that does a fantastic job with multiple guests that get you the facts, just like we're trying to do here. My Did You Know is dated July 30th, a day ago, by Nicholas Sherman. He reports that Texas Governor Greg Abbott has issued an executive order that prohibits cities and local governments in the state from enacting mask mandates or virus requirements. Quote, the new executive order emphasizes that the path forward relies on personal responsibility rather than government mandate. He goes on to say, quote, Texans have the individual right and responsibility to decide for themselves and their children whether they will wear masks, open their businesses, and engage in leisure activities. Folks, here in Ohio, don't we wish that we had a governor that was willing to stand on truth and give that same type of executive mandate? Reach out to your Ohio legislators. Demand the same approach. We need to be loud and proud. Remember, listen to Joe Blystone. He said, what happens with the squeaky wheel? It's the one that gets the oil, right? So we have to be louder, loud and proud. Apathy, remember, is the precursor to tyranny, ultimately communism. No more standing down. We schedule everything around what's most important right now, and that's our country saving its freedom. Christina?
Did you know Ohio Stands Up? I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I have actually talked to their office. It's some attorneys that are fighting for this country and fighting for our freedoms and representing people that are getting mistreated. His name's Attorney Tom Renz, and he put a message out that I thought was really good. It said that the governor made an astounding admission thanks to the veto override of SB 22. Listen, this is very important. He cannot force masks on the people and the children of the state. He left out SB 22 legislation, also limited him in a number of other ways. The success of this bill demonstrates the need for HB 248, which HB 248 is the bill that will ensure our medical freedom. So we need to get a hold of our legislators and make sure that they approve and pass HB 248. He further along, he said, tell your conservative elected officials to stop making excuses and support the rights of individuals over profits of big business. The lie that the conservatives do not believe in business regulation needs to be put in the trash with all the other lies. Conservatives have no issue with regulating against racism, sexism, religious freedoms, discrimination. In fact, I think you would have a hard time finding a conservative that thought it was a bad idea not to regulate the restaurant workers to wash their hands before cooking food. The entire line of reasoning is not but talking points from big pharma and is being pushed by people bought and paid for by the pharma lobby. Real conservatives will always recognize that individual rights trump business rights. Beyond the need for the state legislation, the other issue we're facing are federal and local. I, meaning Tom Renz and his group of attorneys, are also fighting the federal issue to the best of their capacity. But we, the people, must fight the local fights. Our schools are all going to be pushed to mask our children, and many will try to lock down again this fall. There simply aren't enough lawyers to fight every district, so you have to fight your fights locally. Every county in this state needs to organize and plan. You need to attend school board meetings, town council meetings, county commissioner meetings, and you need to attend them all. Which brings me to my next point, which I have put on Facebook. It was funny, right before I read that, I had decided that I thought it would be really important to put a group together of parents, grandparents, to start going around to each school fighting for the children to not have to wear the mask and to not allow the critical race theory to be taught in the schools. We all agree that this whole thing with the mask mandates, kids are very unlikely to get COVID, and if they do, they have very mild symptoms. Why in the world we'd mask our kids up for 8 hours a day? It's destroying their immune systems. It's unhealthy, and the parents have to get out there and fight. So I'm going to be getting together with parents, and we're going to be going to the schools that are going to demand that the kids wear a mask and demand that they are having this critical race theory taught in the schools. And we are going to go to all the board meetings, and we're going to fight them every step of the way until it stops, because the only way it's going to stop is when we say so. As long as we keep complying to all these ridiculous mandates, it's never going to end. So if everybody that thinks that this stuff needs to end would please contact me and let me know that you want to get involved. I think there's power in numbers. And so the more parents that we can get involved and can go and fight this, the more success we're going to have. Greg?
Did you know, according to Just the News, July 30th of this year, Natalia Mittelstadt, she reports that the Department of Justice under the Biden administration dropped charges against 5 visiting Chinese scientists accused of hiding their affiliations with China's military. Prosecutors said they would stop pursuing visa fraud charges, among others, against the scientists, which included biomedical and cancer researchers in California and a doctoral candidate studying artificial intelligence in Indiana. In brief court filings late Thursday and Friday, the Wall Street Journal reported. The cases were part of the Trump administration's China's initiative, which stated in 2018 to prosecute alleged instances of trade secret theft and economic espionage by researchers who were accused of lying about their backgrounds to obtain access to American research institutions on behalf of the Chinese military. So here we go. We have the Biden administration. You think about that. Do they have any affiliation with China? Does his son have any affiliation with China? Absolutely. And they're letting people go who basically are spying and stealing our secrets, reporting back to China, and are part of the Chinese military. It has to be stopped, folks. Christina.
Did you know about the January 6th arrests that have been made and these people that have been put in jail for 6 months? And a lot of them, in my opinion, are innocent and they did nothing wrong. Some of them were standing on the steps. Some of them were just walking through. They were actually let into the buildings. Yes, there was some violence that took place, which was Antifa and Black Lives Matter that were paid probably from Soros to do so. And so these people are getting the raw end of the deal, and there's such a double standard because if we remember back to they were out protesting and looting and tearing down statues and burning down buildings. They destroyed $5 billion worth of property. Only $2 billion of those dollars were insured. People that worked their whole lives for their businesses lost everything and lost their businesses. But that was okay, according to them. As they were being arrested, the few that were, they were bailed out immediately by Hollywood elites. Anybody bailing out these guys from January 6th? No, they're grossly mistreated. And when these people were looting and burning down buildings and everything, they were saying that they weren't being violent as they were on video with things burning down behind them. They were setting police stations on fire, burning up police cars, invading federal courthouses in Portland. Do you guys see the double standard that's going on here? That was all acceptable. All the Democrats were on there not only condoning it, but encouraging it. And so I'm not in any way condoning destroying things like what was done in the Capitol, but I think the wrong people got arrested. The actual patriots got arrested while the people that were paid to go in there and were being snuck into the back doors, they got off. Let's face it, if they really wanted to keep people out of the Capitol building, it's the Capitol building of the United States of America. You are trying to tell me that they were not capable to keep them out if they wanted them out? Absolutely, they were capable. They chose to let them in because they wanted to set them up. It was all a setup. And unfortunately, a lot of patriots fell for it. But the patriots that went in there, they were not the ones destroying things. They were literally walking through the building. So I just think that it's really unfortunate what's happening to the people that have been arrested. And from some of the research I've done, they've been treated very poorly. And I think that we patriots need to really fight for them. I can guarantee you that if these people that were doing all the looting and burning things down got arrested and put in jail for 6 months, you would see riots all over this country on every street corner. Now, I'm not suggesting that we do that, but I'm saying we should do something and not sit back and allow our fellow patriots to be locked up for something half of them are innocent. They didn't even do anything wrong. Greg?
Yeah, just to make an additional point with what you're talking about, Christina, go to Sydney Powell's, powell.com. She has 3 different websites, different objectives to accomplish, one of which is helping out these people who are being detained over in Washington, D.C. And there's quite a bit of information if you follow her on Telegram of what you can do to get involved and help out. Okay, my next Did You Know is from the Daily Wire by Tim Pierce. Did you know that the feds are pumping millions of taxpayer dollars into a group that supports defunding the police? The federal government is giving millions of taxpayer dollars annually to a group that supports defunding the police departments. The Department of Justice, there we go. Are they truly the Department of Justice? The Department of Health and Human Services and other federal agencies have awarded the Vera Institute. Who in the heck is the Vera Institute? Do you know? The Vera Institute of Justice nearly $90 million this fiscal year. Since 2008, the federal government has pumped $811 million worth of taxpayer money into the institute, according to data received by the Washington Free Beacon. During the riots last year, sparked by the death of George Floyd, 2 Vera executives expressed support for defund the police movement among Black Lives Matter activists. The movement called for stripping funds from local police departments to finance social programs in crime-ridden communities, as the Free Beacon reports. Quote, Vera is committed to dismantling the current culture of policing and working towards solutions that defund police and shift power to communities. Vera President Nicholas Turner wrote on June 8, 2020. Turner, who received $420,000 in salary and benefits at Vera in 2019, urged support for, quote, the outrage we're seeing in the streets, in our communities, and in the media. What outrage are you seeing, pal? Right? He says, quote, now's the time to stop tinkering with police reform and to enact wholesale change, Turner said. We're building on this unique moment of public awareness, outrage, and calls to defund the police. Another Vera officer, Jamelia Hodge, said it was, quote, time for us to radically dismantle the criminal justice system. Writing in June 2020, she said that the criminal justice system, quote, dehumanizes and devalues Black people and is rooted in our nation's legacy of slavery and white supremacy. Are you kidding me? Wow. Amid rising crime in major U.S. cities and backlash from law enforcement, the defund the police message has been rejected by many American voters. We all know that, right? Check this out. A Gallup poll last year found that among Black Americans, 81% wanted the same amount or more policing in their communities. Don't fall for the squeaky wheel. We have to become the squeaky wheel, folks. This is unacceptable. $811 million awarded to this institution. We have a whole bunch of other statistics we'll share with you, too, about Black Lives Matter, okay, and Antifa. But this is another one. Did you know about it? I didn't. Okay. Did you say that was your last?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to transition into our hot topic discussion, and that's going to continue on our subject of corruption. And we have a special guest that's going to help us develop that subject. Her name is Carol Lynne Morgan. Okay, we're here with Carol Lynne Morgan. I first heard Lynn speak, she goes by Lynn, at a human trafficking seminar that was held to raise awareness and empower others to get involved to help put an end to it. She shared her personal story, experience with the group, which inspired me to want to know more. Christina and I have done much research on this subject. We did a podcast. We called it Raw Material, Human Trafficking. In that research, we come to find out some important information. One of the big-time red flags for us was not only the huge incidence of it that occurs worldwide and in the U.S., but the number of reports of it are so low. And even lower are the arrests, and even lower are the convictions. Check this out. Incidents. Estimated that 199,000 incidents occur in the United States every year. It is a $150 billion industry, second to the drug industry only. And it's on track to surpass that industry here real soon. This is what I was talking about. Reported cases. In 2018, in the United States, there were 10,949 reported cases. In 2019, 11,500 cases. So if we have 199,000 incidents and there's only like 11,000 cases that are reported. Convictions. It's even worse. In 2019, there were only 339 convictions of it. Why such a disparity? Ask yourself. Think through that. My opinion is the corruption that is everywhere. And we have a special guest tonight that we're going to interview, and she's been through a huge ordeal that involved, from what I remember, a lot of corruption. And she's going to share with us tonight her story and what she's went through and where she's at presently with it, and to make everybody else empowered to get involved. We need to put an end to this. Christina, how did we want to start things out?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you, Lynn, for coming and sharing your story. It's very courageous for you to get out there and let people know what you went through. And if you would like to give us a brief introduction about who you are so that the audience will have a better understanding of who Carol Lynne Morgan is.
Okay, hello. My name is Carol Lynne Morgan, and I grew up in Trumbull County most of my younger years before the teens. My father worked at Thomas Steel for 37 years. My mother was a homemaker. And at age 16, I went to live with my grandmom in Miami, Florida. So I kind of was getting sick all the time in the winters in Ohio and suffering quite a bit from that. So I went to better weather with my grandmother in Florida and went to school there and finished up my education there and was studying to be a dentist.
So how many kids do you have?
I have 6 children. I'm a mother of 6 wonderful children. I love each one of them dearly. Each one is unique in their own right, but I do not love one more than the other.
And what were the age range of the kids?
There is 20 years and 20 days between my eldest daughter and my youngest daughter. So my baby Soraya is a June bug, and so is my oldest daughter.
And do you currently have custody of your children?
I do not have custody at this time.
How often do you get to see your kids?
I do not get to see my children whatsoever.
That's very sad, and I'm sorry about that. Do you feel like your kids have been brainwashed against you?
Absolutely. My children have been brainwashed against me. My oldest daughter, I do spend time with her all the time. And I have 2 little grandchildren, very sweet. I call my grandson, I call him Snooch. And my granddaughter, I call her Nofina. They're adorable. I have a wonderful relationship with the 3 younger children of mine. They are excited and waiting to come home at any time. I did have full custody of all of them. Of course, my daughter aged out when my case went to the courts, but I had full custody of all 5 children in the beginning.
And have your kids ever been abused by either you or their father?
My children have never been abused by me whatsoever, but my children have been repeatedly abused by their father.
And I think as we get into some more of the corruption examples, you'll get some information to us that there's even records of that. Isn't that true?
Oh, yes, sure. Yes.
Let me ask you this. When did your problem or situation begin? When did this all start, your journey through all this?
Well, my journey began, I had married a man, Lebanese descent. I actually sponsored him to come to this country. I paid his way here. We had met through friends and family, and it didn't exactly work out the way it was supposed to. Instead of being the nice Christian man that would be a loving, caring father and someone to raise a family with, I ended up getting involved with an extreme narcissistic abuser, and I suffered for almost 18 years in that abuse. And a lot of times mothers stay in the abuse because they have young children. Where can you go? I wasn't allowed to work anymore after I had gotten married. So I was a stay-at-home mom of 6, and that's the way that he wanted it.
And I know earlier you had mentioned something as we were talking prior to the podcast. What was the turning point for you when you knew enough was enough? And would you like to share what the turning point was for you when you said, I'm not doing this anymore?
When was that?
Yes. On my birthday, August 30th, 2011, my daughter had told me, Mama, if you don't get out of this now, he's going to kill you. So after so many years of suffering domestic violence, I went to the Trumbull County Domestic Relations Court, or as it's referred to as the Family Court, and I wanted to file for a divorce. I didn't know the procedures, as a lot of us parents do not know the legal procedures. We're not lawyers. We are just regular, everyday folks. The court had talked me into filing a dissolution. They said a dissolution is a friendly way to end a marriage. It would be fully mediated, and it's permanent. It's final. You can get the dissolution. It takes a couple weeks to get a hearing, and then a few weeks after that, the judge will sign off on the final decree.
Did they know the reason why you were filing for the divorce?
They did.
And they still advised you dissolution was best.
They still advised me dissolution was best because they have an agenda and a reason for doing that.
Because just right there, I don't know a lot about it, but that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
If somebody's coming to get guidance and they know there's abuse involved, dissolution makes no sense at all.
None.
Right.
The reason they do that is because a dissolution can always be converted to a divorce, but a divorce can never be converted to a dissolution. So they advise you to file a dissolution because they know that there's tension, there's fighting, there's going to be continual fighting. So the longer your case stays on the docket, it's more money in their pocket.
Wow.
Wow. So have you had any previous incidents or problems with the law?
I have never been convicted of any crime. I've never done a drug in my life. I do not drink any alcohol. My heart waves are inverted. I can't even tolerate any substance or anything. I don't even really take any medicine other than my heart medicine. So no, I have never had any drug or alcohol issues whatsoever. I have no convictions, as I said. I did have one incident where the Vanna, Ohio Police Department told me to take my children to, it is Boardman Akron Children's Hospital. They have a Boardman facility there. The father had left horrible human bite marks on my children that were leaking wounds, and the Vanna police instructed me to take my children to get bite wound care and then find a safe place to go until they arrested the father. I followed police official orders, and a few days later, my ex-spouse and his attorney, Elise Berkey, had tried to make a problem for me, stating that I took the children away. And of course, the police officer did appear in 3 courts and testified that he told me to do that for the safety of myself and my children. So I'm very thankful to Judge Jeffrey Adler in Girard, Ohio court. He dismissed everything, and he said that there is no jury that would convict this mother. She was protecting her children. So I do not have any criminal record whatsoever. I do have a CCW for my own protection, so that is also, showing the FBI, BCI, and all other agencies.
Background check, right?
Yes, they did a very thorough background check. You can't get a CCW if you have any, criminal history, severe things, any mental issues, anything like that. So I've been fully vetted, and I do have my CCW.
Did you also get your CCW to protect yourself because of an event that occurred with your husband, your ex-husband, at a particular time?
Oh, yes. Currently, I do have a 5-year civil protection order out of Mahoning County, granted by Magistrate Dawson, and then another judge, Beth Smith, had also signed that the entire order stays and is in full force and effect. After I filed for the dissolution, 2 weeks later, my ex-spouse had a standoff with the police where he was armed with a machete. He had come to where I was trying to get a job so that I could support the children, and he was going to decapitate me there in front of my children and all of the people present at the restaurant where I wanted to get a job. So there were 7 Boardman police officers trying to get him out of the car. I was issued a protection order at that time, but that really didn't stop the abuse. Unfortunately, protection orders can only protect you so far. While I had that first protection order, my ex-spouse had been stalking me and watching me from across the street. There's a school that is right across the street from my house. And after I finished the lawn, the children and I, who I had custody of for 7.5 years, they lived with me in Mahoning County. My ex-spouse had, and it's in the news, his name is Lebi Sasia. Okay, it was all over in the Vindicator and the news. He's the one that broke into my home and sexually assaulted me while I was in my own shower, and my children were trying to pull him off of me. So if you look under his name, and the Vindicator did the piece about the machete, where he had tried to behead me with the machete. So there were several other incidences too. There's another arrest of Lebi Sasia when he punched my 9-year-old son in the face in Sam's Club in Boardman. He was arrested for that. So there are multiple issues of my ex-spouse abusing and being very extremely violent towards me and to my children. But it seems that when you get a lawyer that's married to the head judge, then all of your charges either get pled down or completely disappear.
I see. And was that done in Trumbull County or?
Mahoning County is the one that issued the protection orders, both of them. And they did find him guilty. The charges were pled down. His attorney then in Trumbull County made sure that him working in his wife's court, and he's also the chief prosecutor over child support matters, made sure that Dad did not face any discipline or punishment in Trumbull County whatsoever.
So he punches his son in the face.
Yes.
He bites his kids and leaves wounds. There's records of all this.
Yes.
He assaults you in the shower in front of your kids, which are witnesses.
Yes.
And he still has custody of the kids.
He got custody of the children 2 weeks after Mahoning County granted me the current protection order that is still in force and in effect. And the most important part about that is that the father was on supervised visits for child abuse, and he is a substantiated abuser, and he's on the National Child Abuse Registry. He got custody 2 weeks after I got the protection order. And
how did that happen?
Well, how that happened was when I filed for the protection order, the second one, because the first one was ending, and the ex-husband, his behavior, Mr. Sasia's behavior, was becoming more and more dangerous. And the more he'd get away with it, the more they were mollycoddling him in Trumbull County, the more brazen he became. Breaking into my home and attacking me while I'm in my own shower is not an act that a normal sane person would do. You just don't do things like that. So I got called into Trumbull County 2 weeks after I had gotten the protection order. And on June 9, 2017, they told me that there were these 3 contempt motions against me, that the father had lost some of his visitation, that he didn't get enough of his visits. Well, I proved to the court that court themselves suspended father's visitation because of the child abuse. And the arrest bond said for Mr. Sasia to stay away from the son that he punched in the face and the child's immediate family. So I cannot go over a judge's ruling and give him visitation when the court orders say that I'm not allowed to do that. So then they dismissed all 3 of their phony contempt motions and just went ahead and gave him custody anyway.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So back to, I had another question that I kind of skipped over. Has your ex-husband ever been involved with drugs and alcohol?
My ex-husband, in 2001, he was working with Home Depot, and supposedly he hurt his back. Actually, he was angry that he didn't get a manager's position, so he just made that up. If he could sit on the computer for 15 hours in a day, talking to his family, joking, playing, and go to Cape Cod with me and the children, and swim in the ocean and throw the children, he certainly didn't have a back injury. But he started taking OxyContin and Vicodin and was extremely violent when when the pills were wearing off. In between that period and him taking more, we had to run for our lives and just stay away from him. It's like a bear would, charging in the woods. You don't know how to react because you don't know when the next punch is coming or when the next slap in the face is coming. So yes, he actually got too much addicted to these tablets, and I actually had to flush bottles of them down the toilet because the doctors were giving them to him left and right. And no one could find anything wrong with him. They did say that he had a tiny, tiny spot that may be a bulge on L5S1. Well, we all have something like that, lower back, problems. He didn't have anything that would require him to take such powerful narcotics, and I dumped them, and he got scissors and cut my hair all the way down to my scalp, punched me in the face, and he was beating my son so hard with a belt, and my son was 5, and I busted into the bedroom door, and I laid my body over my son, and I looked up at him and I told him, "You beat my back, but you're not going to beat my son." I actually had to keep my son home from school for 2 weeks because he had purple and black stripes across his back all the way down to the back of his legs.
Unbelievable.
The problem is if we report this abuse against our abusive ex-spouses or spouses, women are not believed enough. We don't have enough resources in Ohio to help mothers that are victims and children that are victims of domestic violence and abuse. There are only one agency in Trumbull County and one agency in Mahoning County, and they don't have any funding. So where do you go? How do you get help?
Well, and not to mention, a lot of times when they go into the system, they also have abuse.
Yes.
There's a lot of abuse that occurs in foster homes.
Yes.
So that's unfortunate, but that's the truth.
Yep. From hearing parts of your story at our human trafficking event in Boardman a couple weeks ago, I remember you sharing some examples of the corruption that you've seen through your journey with all this battle that you have. Is that true?
Yes, it is extremely true. The family courts, the fraud and corruption that stems from these family court cases, it affects millions and millions of moms and dads and children negatively. When these judges and magistrates put on a black robe, they put on sort of a cape where they feel that they are above the law and that they can destroy your rights or trample on your constitutionally protected rights with impunity, because who's going to stop them? Family court judges are known to fix cases. It's actually called case fixing, which is part of the RICO statutes. For example, in my case, my dissolution that was fully mediated, mediation means the mediator sat and said, "Miss Morgan, you get this, Mr. Sassia, you get that," and he's supposed to work the whole deal out. You all sign on it. It is a binding contract. 10 months later, David Boker, my ex-spouse's attorney, who is married to the administrative judge Pamela Rintala, forged my attorney's signature on an official court document vacating my dissolution and separation agreement. They did this 10 months after I was granted the dissolution to give Mr. Sassia time to move his funds. He had 401k savings plans, money in stocks and bonds. It gives them time to sell it off or move the money overseas, which he did.
So then they could get more of that money.
Yes, exactly. Wow. Yes, his attorney David Boker wasn't only married to the judge and working in his wife's court using different last names, but David Boker was also the longtime chief prosecutor over child support matters in Trumbull County. So he fixes cases and makes sure that the moms and the children do not get the child support, and that way he and his wife pocket the money.
Wow. So when you initially went through this, and enough was enough, as Christina referenced earlier, and you go and you ask for guidance, right, from that agency, they tell you to file for dissolution versus a divorce. You do that. Then after that's done and it's mediated, just making sure I understand everything.
Yes.
Then after that, they go ahead and they suspend it. Is that what you said? Suspended it for
They
10 months?
They
Or
vacated it.
what does that mean?
That means it's now invalid. It's gone. It's
So everybody signed it. It was
Every-
finalized,
Yes.
and then they went back and changed it.
Yes. The dissolution was granted to me on September 12, 2011. The documents then went to the judge, who then sits you there and takes jurisdiction. And he says, do you still want the terms of this dissolution? They give you some time in between issuing you the dissolution. They give you some time before the final decree is signed. That way, if you want to change anything or you notice something needs to be changed, you have time to do that. He did not want to change anything, and I didn't, because I was getting custody of all 5 of the children. I wanted to keep them safe. So I was to get $1,800 a month and half of the price of my house, which I paid for, the house. I did not get my proper half, and I never got the $1,800 a month because his attorney is a chief prosecutor over child support matters, made sure I never got that $1,800 a month. So then 10 months later, giving Mr. Sasia.
So they signed the documents. The judge, you go to the judge. Judge says,
done.
you want to change? You want to change? No, no.
No
Everything's
changes.
finalized, signed off. It's final. Divorce
It's
decree
final.
or dissolution decree is finalized.
It is finalized.
And then they go back and what was the word you used?
10 months later, they vacate that.
They vacate that. Now, who's they?
The magistrate was to hold a hearing. I have the court docket here. He was to hold a hearing to vacate. There is no vacate hearing
There's no record of that.
on the record. No, there was no hearing, no trial, no testimony, no witnesses, nothing. And there is an evidentiary hearing listed also, and there was no trial, no hearing, no evidence, nothing. It was a backdoor deal. It is handwritten. It's a handwritten thing that, the separation agreement, it doesn't match up with the dissolution, so we're just going to go ahead and vacate everything. Well, it's not true that the things didn't match up. When the father came after me to kill me with the machete, my oldest son was with him in the car. Being that the case, my older son and the next son in line went to live with their dad, and I still had the 3 younger ones with me. That was the only change. The only change was that the 2 older boys now went to live with dad. That could have been remedied. Okay, the 2 boys live with dad now, but you don't vacate an entire dissolution and an entire separation agreement. The appellate court, the 11th Judicial Court of Appeals, ruled, in their opinion, that a separation agreement is a contract and it must be treated as such. It cannot be vacated. It cannot be modified. It can only be enforced by the courts.
So at that point, you had custody of your kids with the dissolution?
Yes.
So then at what point did you end up losing that?
The 2 boys went to live with their dad after the machete
Right.
incident in I believe it was September 24 of 2011. I still had the 3 younger with me all these years, 7.5 years later coming up. So when I got the protection order out of Mahoning County, 2 weeks after I got the protection order from Judge Beth Smith, she granted it and said the entire order stays.
And that was after he assaulted you at your house?
Yes,
that
and
thing?
broke
Okay.
into my home and attacked me, yes. Now that's after 2 days of trial, too. We had 2 full days of trial. So what happened was...
I mean, he assaulted you after 2 days of trial? Is that what you mean?
No, we had 2 days of trial proving and bringing evidence and police reports.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't something that was just handed to me. Oh, we believe you, Miss Morgan. No, there were 2 full solid days of trial before I got the protection order granted to me. So, people have this idea that, the courts just hand out protection orders like water. Mahoning County doesn't do that. They wanted to see the evidence of everything. They wanted to see the police reports. They wanted to hear from me, from the children, from witnesses. And we have proper transcripts, and everything was done properly in Mahoning County. Magistrate Thomas Dawson has been at this for a very long time, and I think that he really knows when people are being truthful and when they're not, okay? So when you have an ex-spouse that says, no, I would never sit across the street from her house, and then you show pictures where the police pull up and actually are behind his car catching him at the school across the street from my house. How can you deny that? And that's what he's done. He just denies everything. Deny. So now the burden of proof is on you. I met my burden of proof and more than that. So if you look up the case of 2016, that's 2016, D as in David, V as in Victor, 689, that is the protection order that is current. It's still going on. How does this man who has done all of this violence, how does he get the custody of the children 2 weeks later? Well, I actually recorded the magistrate, Raymond DeLost, and his attorney, Deborah Smith, the new attorney, because David Boker jumped ship. When my case went to the appellate court, he didn't want them to catch that he forged my attorney's signature, so he hurried up and jumped ship in case that came out. So now his new attorney, Deborah Smith, does not want him to have this protection order because of his position with First Energy. He can't get security clearance if he has a protection order for violence and abuse. So she threatens me with a contempt motion. Withdraw your and dismiss your protection order, or we're going to file contempt charges on you. Well, right.
Contempt for what? Like
that he didn't get enough visitation.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's his own fault, and even the custody evaluator.
The court said that he wasn't allowed to have visitation based on his actions of violence.
Yes, September 13, 2016, the father's visitation was suspended, totally suspended, for several months. And then they let him have some supervised visits, and that's in the time when they took the children from me and gave them to him just 2 weeks after I got the second protection order. So it was an act of retaliation. And by the way, it's very clear, and I want to put this out there, that his attorney, Deborah Smith, wrote the court order and handed it to the judge, and all he did was put his name on her court order giving her client custody. 2 days later, Raymond DeLoss steps off the bench. He's no longer a magistrate. Guess who's now sitting in his seat? Ex-spouse's attorney, Deborah Smith, is the new magistrate.
Wow.
This was planned from the very beginning.
Deborah Smith was the attorney of your ex, and then it went to the court, the judge there, and then he basically just does what she told him to do, signs off on everything, and then a little bit time after that, he steps down, and she's now the new judge.
Yes, it's called copy-pasting decisions, and it is unlawful. It is grounds for reversal. If you look at the Ohio case, Cashley versus Cashley, a judge has to struggle with his decision. He has to show that it was, he looked at the evidence and he really haggled with it, and it was a decision coming from him. These copy-paste decisions is part of the corruption, because any lawyer now can write a court order, pass it to his friend that's a judge, and say, hey, just, sign this, make it that it's your order. Well, that is unlawful, because that is not that judge's or magistrate's decision. It is bias in the highest level that his attorney writes the court order giving her client custody, and then the magistrate, oh, well, I'll just sign it and I'll step off the bench and retire. Now she's the new magistrate sitting in his seat.
Wow.
So the timeline on everything, you had full custody of your kids for about 7.5 years,
Yes.
right? And then two of the boys lived with, right?
The dad from the beginning, like right when the machete incident
Okay.
happened. So then I have 3 of them with me for 7.5 years.
For 7.5 years. And then after the 7.5 years, you lose custody based on what we just covered.
Yes.
And how long have you been without your kids?
The father was supposed to take custody of them September 1st, 2017. He took them for a visitation on August 20th, 2017, and never returned them. And then he withheld them from me for a very long time. And what the court does then is have the children go through this brainwashing process where they will bring in a counselor well, this isn't your dad's fault. This is really your mother's fault. She's the one that caused all this court stuff. And then she starts imprinting in the children's brain that mom is bad and dad, who is the abuser, is the good guy. And it's called trauma bonding. It's kind of like the Stockholm syndrome. These children are now given to abusers, and they have to make it either sink or swim. So when the children started telling the counselor about the abuse, the counselor, who is Kim Leidick, she is listed in my lawsuit, she would tell the children, well, you know, you live with your dad now, you're just going to have to get over it and get used to it.
Now, how do you know she said that? Did your kids tell you that?
My daughter, I actually have a text message from my daughter that she tried to tell the counselor that her dad punched her in the head and was pulling her hair out. So another proof of that, too, is the human bite marks. The children went to the counselor with the human bite marks. The counselor never reported it to the police. She's a mandated reporter. She didn't report it to Children's Services. And all she does is write a report. I think that the mother is saying these things because she doesn't want dad to have visits. Well, the photos that the police took of the children, those are human bite marks. Those are taken in the police department. Those don't lie. The officer's not going to testify under oath in 3 courts defending me. And by the way, the father was charged with endangering children with torture. How did he not get arrested in Trumbull County?
It's crazy.
Unbelievable. So, Lynn, if you would bring us up to date and give us a current status on what you're currently working on.
Okay, sure. In June 13 of 2020, I had a deadline to file for the forgery and the breach of contract. So 2 days prior to that, I'm very thankful I did file a state court claim in the Trumbull County Court of Common Pleas. Judge Rice, Ronald J. Rice, was assigned to the case. The case number is 2020 CV, like Charlie Victor, 704. I had fully proven my case. I put the forensic document examiner's handwriting expert report in there, her affidavit, proof of the felony forgery, proof of the corruption, and Judge Ronald Rice actually just, from the beginning, granted anyone that was a magistrate, a judge, or an attorney, he granted them immunity. These people are not entitled to any immunity for felony forgery, for tampering with records, for any criminal acts. And the thing is that they all conspired to do this together. This was a concerted action. This wasn't one person pulling this scheme off. It takes a group of them to pull this scheme off. And there's a reason why they do it. They have an agenda. So then the remaining 3 defendants filed for summary motion.
What does that mean?
Summary motion is basically, it's only to be used in special circumstances, saying, hey, look, Judge, she really doesn't have a case here. Rule for us on a summary motion and just let's not take this to trial. Attorneys use summary motion and abuse it, actually, because they don't want to go to court. They don't want the expense of discovery. They don't want expense of the jury trial. And they
don't want the evidence being shown.
It's concealed. That's the deal. The deal is to conceal. And Judge Ronald J. Rice wanted this case concealed at all costs. Why? Because of the amount of state and federal dollars that were made off of my case alone over these 9.5, almost 10 years.
What do you mean money that they made?
We're talking millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. They apply for state funding, federal funding, and how they do it is they say, well, we have a high conflict resolution divorce here. There was no conflict. Remember, it was fully mediated, friendly dissolution. They create the conflict. Then they create the legislator. They legislate from the bench. They make up stuff. Like currently, I'm under a court order from the 86-year-old retired visiting judge, Joseph Giolito, that until I repair my relationship with my abuser, I don't get to see my kids. Now, I will say...
Well, didn't you tell me he is only supposed to be on the case, this type of program that's in place, he's only supposed to be on the case for 3 months, and sometimes they can even get up to maybe 3 more months, but he's been on your case a lot longer?
Yes, sir. Actually, the Ohio Constitution, Article 4, Section 6 says no person may be a judge once they've reached the age of 70. That means no person. That doesn't mean we can create this little retired judges program, which is highly unconstitutional because these people don't have an oath of office. And you have to have an oath of office to be able to sit up on the bench and make rulings because you're taking an oath to abide by the Constitution. If you have no oath of
Wow.
office,
We're circumventing our Constitution.
Yes, sir, completely. And Maureen O'Connor is famous for just putting retired visiting judges on cases that, like, I have a slam dunk win case. I have won my case a million times over. I've just had bad referees, bad judges, bad magistrates, corruption. And with Maureen O'Connor sending up these retired visiting judges, mine is 86 years old.
They're supposed to be at the max, 3 months, did you tell me?
He should be, according to Ohio Supreme Court guidelines, he's only on it for a temporary assignment, which means 3 months. If you look at their guidelines 5.02 and forward, if he didn't finish the case in 3 months, the administrative judge of the court can ask for additional 3 months, but not more than that. That is their wording.
Their
not
cutoff.
more than that. That's their cutoff. This man has been on my case for 3 years.
Wow, even more evidence.
3 years. And that's why I filed my case against Maureen O'Connor, the entire Supreme Court, and their disciplinary counsel, who knew about the felony forgery and all of this, case fixing and public corruption. They've known about it since 2014.
Wow.
They've taken no action. So that case number is 2021-00105, capital A, capital D, like David. You can look up, you see the proof, you see the exhibits after, I'm talking A through Z exhibits of
She's
proof.
doing this from memory, folks. I have notes in front of me to help guide me. She's doing this from memory, so she knows
Well,
all
the
this.
best thing for people to do is read your Constitution of the United States, your Bill of Rights. If you don't know what your rights are, how can you have them enforced? Read your Ohio Constitution, you have a Bill of Rights. One of them in particular, which was circumvented, as you said, with Judge Ronald J. Rice, I am entitled to a jury of my peers. If you look in the Ohio Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, I am guaranteed a jury trial. That's inviolate. That means it cannot be violated, cannot be infringed upon. And even in civil cases, because the courts will tell you, nope, this is a civil case, you don't get a jury trial. Well, that's not true. How do you take away somebody's children and you have no reason or cause to do so? I have never had any criminal charges. I never did any drugs, no alcohol, no abuse to anyone. I've never been found to be unfit. My children were on honor students, every report card every year at Robinwood Elementary. Wow. So what do you have against me? Nothing. You're going to say the father didn't get enough visits? What, am I supposed to disobey your court orders and give him visits? Then if he kills the children, you come and arrest me? So they had me by my throat in a trap. Yeah. If I give him the visits and he harms them, I'm going to prison. If I don't give him visits, oh, you're an alienator. Let's take the kids and give them to the abuser.
But that was just a judge that said that, right? That made that decision.
A magistrate, not
magistrate.
even a judge. Yes. Now, currently...
What's a magistrate versus a judge? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, a magistrate is just an attorney acting as a judge. And they're all actors. They are bad court actors. If you have to put on a black robe, a costume, to get up there and make rules and codes and statutes that don't exist... There's nothing in the law that says I have to repair my relationship with my abuser or I don't get to see my kids. At that point, they are interfering with custody. Right. That is interference with custody. And by the way, parents cannot be charged with interference with custody because those are your children. Right. You're a natural father. You're a natural mother. I am a natural mother. I have absolute, fundamental, unalienable liberty interest in the care, custody, and companionship with my children cannot be infringed upon without due process of law. All of these people in this concerted action are trespassers of the law. And how it came now where we are, this is the current situation, okay? I have right here 2 affidavits from social workers that even wrote to the court their affidavits. The father of my children, Lebi Salsia, was choking and strangulating my oldest son, older son, he's the next one down, so hard while he was straddling him on the sofa that the sofa broke underneath of them. So he punched the oldest son in the chest, in the heart, knocked him backwards into the cabinets in the basement. My next to oldest son came running down the steps to interfere, and the father grabbed him around the throat, threw him over the back of the sofa onto the sofa, straddled him and choked him so hard that the wood broke in the sofa. He could have broken his neck. He could have broken his trachea, his windpipe, and cut off his air. He could have killed my son. So it went to a hearing on July 8, 2020. This Joseph Giolito, 86 years old, asked the guardian ad litem, Charles Dre, guardian ad litem, supposed to be protecting the children, did the father strangulate and choke the son? Yes, Your Honor, it did happen. And did the sofa get broken? Yes, Your Honor, the sofa got broken. Do you feel that this was a one-time thing? Or, well, Your Honor, I think that this happened, and okay, dismissed. The judge gets up and walks out of there like nothing happened.
Even though there's prior evidence of physical abuse before that.
We're talking from 1996 was the first time Lebi Salsia was arrested in Indiana for abuse on a child.
On the case because he's
Should
supposed at max 6 months, you said earlier.
Yes, sir.
And it's 3 years counting, and he just makes this decision just when? What was the date?
July 8, 2020. I have the disc.
Wow.
I actually got the recording from the court because it's so unbelievable that they did this.
Well, even if there wasn't prior abuse to that, it still was abuse. So
I agree.
I
agree.
I know you
I'm
do,
just
but
saying,
I'm just
that's
saying.
even worse. I mean, there's even a judge saying, well, it might have been a one-time thing, but how could you say that when there's prior evidence that substantiates there's multiple occurrences of it?
Yeah.
So that's just slam dunk change that judges, even if that ad lim or whatever you said oh, it might just be one time. No, that means that person's lying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Simple as that. So what could we do to help?
Well, family court corruption affects the entire general population in this country. Title IV defunding, which funds these corrupt courts and their corrupt decisions and all of their chicanery, as you want to call it, or odious behavior, it comes from Title IV defunding. This comes out of Social Security. It is a section of Social Security that everybody pays into. So you work hard all day long, and a huge portion of your pay goes to Social Security, and then the Title IV defunding is taken out of the community Social Security and pays these fraudulent, corrupt, bad judges, magistrates, guardian ad litems, and some of the attorneys.
So the local judges or court system goes to our federal government under this title and says, listen, we have this going on. We need extra funding because of this, and they have all this information and they get more money.
And that's the money that they get, too, for the child support dollars. So if a mom or dad files to get child support, for every dollar that they get in child support, that money is matched, federal dollars coming in. And also with this corruption, like, you know, my case is a dissolution, friendly, over and done with. They stretch it out. They did that intentionally so that they knew they could convert my dissolution into a divorce, and that would take years. And that's just money, a waterfall of money flowing in.
Well, Lynn, we just want to thank you so much for sharing your story, and I'm very sorry for what you're going through, and you will be in my prayers. And again, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's jump into our Bible verse for the week. Christina?
Well, as Lynn was here and she was speaking about her heartbreaking separation of her children that she and many others are unfortunately going through, and that is probably the deepest hurt that you'll ever face in life, being separated either by death or by courts that are corrupt, being separated from your precious children that are your gifts from God. I can't think of anything that's more heartbreaking that I would have to face in my life. And so my heart goes out to Lynn and all the other people facing that. And I'm very sorry for them for going through that. And so after talking to her, I was thinking about a Bible verse that was comforting to me. I've went through many, many difficult things. Thank God, nothing like that. But there has been some difficult things that I've experienced. And the Bible verse that I wanted to pick out was Psalm 91:4. I'm going to read a little bit more than just the 91:4 because I think it puts it more into perspective if you read the prior and the later parts of the verse. It's he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him will I trust. Surely he will deliver thee from the snare of the fowler. And then this is the 91. This is the fourth one. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings thou shalt trust. His truth shall be the shield, be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor the arrow that flieth by day, nor they that walketh in darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at his side, and 10,000 at the right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. So that was always a comforting verse to me when I was going through trials, knowing that we have a Savior that will literally shield us from all of the difficult things that we go through, and that we can always trust in him. And even though it might not look promising, there's always a reason that we go through things, and there will always be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's then go ahead and continue, if you would, Christina, with our prayer.
Dear Lord, we are so thankful for the great country that we live in, and we ask you to continue to bless this country, reveal the corruption that's taking place, so that we can get our country back and that we can get our freedoms that we have had so many die for. I pray, Lord, for the children that have had to endure such egregious circumstances, being separated from their mothers and their fathers. And I pray that you would put love and protection around them, and that you would put your feathers around them and protect them as you said that you would in the verse that we just read. And I also would pray for the mothers and fathers that have that separation from their children, that you would be their comforter and that you would extend your peace upon them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So next week, we're going to continue our hot topic discussion on corruption, but we're going to specialize a little bit more into developing the topic of election fraud. And we know we have that symposium coming up by Mike Lindell in August, so maybe we'll be able to transmit some of that information we learned from there through our podcast. And with that, we will wish you a great week, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks. Have a nice night.